I never imagined the happiest day of my life would turn into a battlefield. And the enemy wouldn't be strangers, but my own mother and half-sister. My name's Rachel, I'm 30 years old, and just last March the man I love, David, got down on one knee in our small apartment's living room. No crowd, no fancy fireworks, no grand speeches, just him, shaking a little, holding a simple ring, whispering, "I want the rest of my life to be with you." I said yes, of course. It felt like every rough patch we'd survived over 6 years together suddenly made sense, like all the pieces finally clicked into place. For the first time in a long time, I felt like my life was finally mine. But that feeling lasted about 30 minutes. Because when I called my mother, Linda, to share the news, her first response wasn't congratulations. She didn't ask about the ring. She didn't ask about the proposal. Her first words were chilling in their bluntness. "Oh, Cassie's not gonna like this." Cassie, my half-sister, 24 years old, Linda's daughter from her second marriage. To the rest of the family, she's always been the golden child. The pretty one, the one Mom bragged about. The one who, for reasons I still don't fully understand, seemed to view my existence as a personal insult. Growing up with her was complicated. If I got good grades, Cassie sulked. If relatives praised me, she pouted. Somehow, my wins always felt like her losses. And now, with my engagement, the old rivalry I thought we'd left behind was about to explode in ways I couldn't predict. At first, I brushed off Mom's comment. I told myself she was joking or overreacting. But then Cassie announced something that stunned us all. She was getting married too. To a man she'd only been dating 3 months. I bit my tongue. I didn't judge her out loud. Not when she rushed into wedding planning with barely any time to breathe. Not when she posted every engagement selfie like she was racing me to the altar. I stayed silent because I thought, her life, her choices. But 3 months later, her whirlwind marriage crashed. Her husband cheated, with her best friend, no less. The divorce was messy, public, and humiliating. And somehow, Cassie decided that was my fault. In her mind, my engagement had triggered her to prove herself, to compete, to grab happiness before I could flaunt mine. And when it blew up, she didn't blame her impulsive decisions, or the man she married, or the friend who betrayed her. She blamed me. By fall, the tension in our family was unbearable. Cassie and I weren't speaking. Mom barely looked me in the eye. Every time I mentioned wedding plans, flowers, dresses, even the date, Mom changed the subject. It was like my joy had become something shameful, something I wasn't allowed to celebrate. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was November. We had just mailed our invitations. I was humming while folding laundry when my phone buzzed, Mom's name on the screen. She rarely called, so I assumed it was good news. I was wrong. "Rachel, are you really going through with the wedding?" I laughed nervously. "Of course. Everything's booked. Why?" Her sigh was heavy, theatrical. "I've been thinking about Cassie, and I really think you should reconsider." At first I thought I misheard. "Reconsider what?" "The wedding," she said, as if it were obvious. "Cassie is still heartbroken. A big celebration like this so soon after her divorce, it's cruel. You should postpone, or at least cancel the big reception." I stood there, frozen, my laundry forgotten, my heart pounding. Was she serious? "Mom, are you asking me to cancel my wedding for Cassie's feelings?" "If you truly loved your sister," she said softly, "you'd do this for her." And that was the moment I realized. This wasn't just about my wedding. This was about control, about whether I'd keep living my life for them or finally take it back. I thought my mother's request to cancel the wedding was the peak of the madness. I was wrong. It was just the beginning. After that phone call, I tried to put the whole thing behind me. David and I focused on finalizing details, cake tastings, seating charts, our first dance song. We wanted joy, not drama. But every time my phone lit up with a text from Mom, my stomach sank. I didn't even have to read them to know. She was still trying to convince me to call the whole thing off. At first, it was subtle. "Cassie's been crying all night again," Mom texted. "She can't stand the thought of watching you walk down the aisle while she's still picking up the pieces of her life." The next day, "Do you really need a big wedding? A small ceremony would be so much kinder." By week 3, it wasn't subtle anymore. "If you go through with this, Rachel, don't expect Cassie or me to show up. We won't support you hurting your sister like this." Part of me hoped Cassie would stay out of it, but that hope died fast. She started sending me voicemails. Not just texts, but long, tearful monologues about how my happiness was cruel, how I was parading my engagement like a trophy. She even claimed I chose January, the same month her divorce finalized. Just to rub salt in the wound, and as much as I tried to ignore her, she found new ways to invade my peace. One morning, I woke up to 30 missed calls, all from relatives I barely talked to. My cousin Megan finally spilled the truth. Cassie had been calling everyone in the family, spinning a story about me flaunting my perfect life to hurt her. According to her, I wasn't just selfish, I was heartless. The worst part? Some of them believed her. Suddenly, I was getting messages from uncles and distant aunts I hadn't seen in years. "Rachel, maybe you should postpone for Cassie's sake. Family comes first. Can't you be more compassionate?" It was surreal. My wedding, something David and I had planned for a year, was being turned into some twisted morality test, with me cast as the villain. David, bless him, stayed calm through it all. When Mom even called him directly, trying to guilt him into convincing me to scale down the wedding, he shut her down immediately. "This isn't about Cassie," he told her flatly. "Rachel deserves her day. We're not changing our plan." That only made them angrier. By December, the situation had spiraled. Cassie wasn't just playing victim anymore. She was going on the offensive. She'd show up at family gatherings and loudly complain about me within earshot of anyone who would listen. She'd post vague, passive-aggressive status updates on social media. Some people love kicking you when you're down, even family. Guess blood doesn't mean loyalty anymore. And Mom? She amplified every single one. "Rachel, Cassie's been through so much," she'd say over the phone. "You can't expect her to sit there and watch you be happy. It's cruel." But the final straw, the moment I realized this wasn't just drama, it was sabotage, happened at Christmas dinner. David and I were at my aunt's house, trying to enjoy the holiday, when Cassie struck. One minute we were talking about flowers and centerpieces. The next, Cassie burst into loud, messy sobs in the middle of the living room. "I can't believe how cruel people can be," she wailed, clutching Mom's arm like I'd personally ruined her life. "Rachel knows what I've been through, and she doesn't care. She just wants to rub it in my face." The room went dead silent. All eyes turned to me, and before I could even open my mouth, Mom chimed in. "She's right, Rachel. You have no idea how much pain you've caused your sister." My hands were shaking under the table. My heart was pounding in my ears. And that was the moment I realized, if I didn't draw a hard line now, they'd ruin everything. Even my wedding day. After Christmas dinner, I couldn't sleep. My mother's words, "You have no idea how much pain you've caused your sister," kept echoing in my head. Pain? What about mine? For months, I'd been walking on eggshells, shrinking my happiness to spare Cassie's feelings. And still, it wasn't enough. The next morning, I sat across from David at our tiny kitchen table, coffee growing cold between us. "I can't do this anymore," I whispered. He didn't even ask what I meant. He knew. "They're not gonna stop, Rachel," he said. "You've bent over backwards trying to keep the peace, and look where it's gotten us. This isn't about Cassie's pain. It's about control." I stared at my hands. "You think I should uninvite them?" "I think," he said gently, "you deserve to enjoy your wedding without wondering what stunt they're going to pull next." The idea felt unthinkable, but also like the only option left. 2 days later, I hit send on the hardest email I've ever written. Short, direct, no room for negotiation. "Due to ongoing behavior that's caused significant stress during this planning process, you are no longer invited to the wedding. We hope you respect this decision." I sent it to both Mom and Cassie. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped my phone. The replies came fast. Mom's email was a wall of guilt. "You're tearing this family apart. How could you choose a man over your own blood? Your father would be ashamed." Cassie's was pure venom. "You've always been jealous of me. You're punishing me because Ryan didn't choose you." I laughed out loud at that one, then immediately felt sick. Was that what she was telling people? That David wanted her? The whispers started almost instantly. Megan, my cousin who'd been quietly feeding me updates, called in a hushed voice 2 nights later. "You won't believe what Cassie's saying," she murmured. "Try me. She's telling people David's been flirting with her, that you found out, And that's why you uninvited her, because you're threatened. For a second, I couldn't breathe. She's lying. Of course she's lying, Megan said. But she's spreading it like wildfire. A few people are actually buying it. My stomach turned. This wasn't just sabotage anymore. This was character assassination. Then came the message that changed everything. It was late. David and I were curled up on the couch when his phone buzzed. He frowned, glanced at the screen, and froze. "It's Cassie," he said. "What does she want now?" He handed me the phone. The text read, "I can't stop thinking about you. I know it's wrong, but I feel like we have a connection. Rachel will never understand. Can we talk? Alone?" I felt the blood drain from my face. "She's hitting on you," I said flatly. David nodded grimly. "What do you want to do?" There was no hesitation. Screenshot everything, then block her. We spent the next 10 minutes quietly gathering evidence. Every manipulative message, every desperate confession. Proof. Because I knew Cassie well enough to know she'd twist this too. And then, I sent it. Not to Cassie, not to Mom, but to the entire family group chat. The fallout was nuclear. Within minutes, my phone exploded with shocked messages. "Wait, Cassie sent this to David? Are you kidding me? And she's been calling Rachel jealous? She's been lying this whole time." Even relatives who had doubted me before fell silent. Mom tried to defend her. Of course she did, claiming Cassie was confused and grieving. But no one was buying it anymore. For the first time in months, I felt the tide turning. Still, deep down, I knew this wasn't over. If Cassie was willing to crash my reputation, what would stop her from crashing my wedding? The morning of my wedding felt like something out of a dream. The January air was crisp, the sky a pale blue that promised good luck. Inside the bridal suite, soft music played as my bridesmaids zipped me into my gown. For the first time in months, I felt calm. Until Amanda burst through the door. Her face was pale. "Rachel, they're here." My stomach dropped. "Who?" "Your mom, Cassie. They're at the gate. Security's holding them back, but they're making a scene." For a moment, the room spun. I had imagined this possibility, prepared for it even. But hearing it was actually happening, my hand started to shake. "What are they doing?" I asked. Amanda hesitated. "Your mom's crying, saying she just wants to see her daughter get married. Cassie's screaming at the guards. Something about how you stole everything from her." I closed my eyes. Of course, one last performance. I stepped outside, heart pounding. From across the courtyard, I could hear the commotion. Cassie's shrill voice carrying over the music, Mom's theatrical sobs. Guests were starting to notice, murmurs rippling through the crowd. David appeared beside me, jaw tight. "Do you want me to handle it?" "No," I said quietly. "I need to do this myself." The moment they saw me, the shouting stopped, replaced by Cassie's twisted smile. "Look who finally decided to show up," she sneered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Here to rub it in my face one last time?" I stayed silent, letting her words hang in the air. People were staring now, friends, extended family, even the florist frozen mid-step with an armful of roses. Mom rushed toward me, tears streaming. "Rachel, please, don't do this. She's your sister. You can't shut family out like this." I met her gaze, steady. "Family doesn't try to ruin your life." Cassie laughed, sharp and bitter. "Oh, please, you're the one who ruined mine. You think everyone doesn't see it? You've been jealous of me since we were kids, jealous of everything I had." "That did it. Everything you had?" I said, my voice cutting through the air. "Cassie, you've spent months telling people I'm jealous of you, that David wanted you, that I uninvited you because I couldn't handle the competition." She smirked, unfazed. "Sounds about right." I took a slow breath. "Funny, then, that I still have the messages you sent him." The color drained from her face. "What messages?" someone whispered from the crowd. Without another word, I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshots, and held them high for everyone to see. Gasps erupted. Cassie's own words. "I can't stop thinking about you. I feel like we have a connection Rachel doesn't understand," flashed across the screen in glaring white text. "You tried to seduce my fiancé," I said, voice steady but shaking with adrenaline. "Then you lied about him to cover your tracks. And Mom, you defended her every step of the way." Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Mom stammered, "Rachel, that's not—" "No," I cut her off. "You've spent my entire engagement making this about Cassie's pain, about her feelings. But what about mine? What about David's? What about the months you let her spread lies about us? The murmurs grew louder, cousins whispering, aunts exchanging looks. Even my uncle, Mom's closest ally, shook his head in disgust. Cassie's face twisted. "You're making me look bad." "You did that yourself," I snapped. Security escorted them out minutes later, their protests fading into the winter air. When I walked back down the aisle an hour later, hand in hand with David, surrounded by people who chose to love us, I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time, the drama was over, and so was their power over me. The silence after the ceremony felt unreal. Hours earlier, chaos had threatened to swallow everything. Cassie's shouting, Mom's pleading, the gasps from stunned relatives. Now, as David and I swayed under the soft glow of string lights during our first dance, the only sound was music and the quiet hum of laughter from people who actually loved us. For the first time in months, I felt safe. The fallout came fast. Word spread through the family in record time. By the next morning, my phone was flooded, not with hate this time, but with apologies. Aunts who had once believed Cassie's lies texted me, ashamed. Cousins called to say they had no idea what she'd been doing behind the scenes. Even relatives I barely spoke to sent messages. "We're proud of you for standing up for yourself." And Cassie? She disappeared. Not just from the wedding, but from everyone's lives. I heard through the grapevine that she moved out of Mom's house after a blowout fight, Mom finally realizing the daughter she'd spent years coddling wasn't a victim, but a hurricane she'd helped create. As for Mom, she tried reaching out a week later, a voicemail, her voice trembling, saying she just wanted her daughters to get along. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for ignoring her. Because this wasn't about getting along. This was about boundaries. And I was finally enforcing mine. Life after the wedding was quieter, and not just because Cassie was gone. David and I moved into our new apartment. A small loft with creaky floors and sunlight that pooled on the kitchen counter every morning. We'd wake up, brew coffee, and talk about everything but the past. No drama, no guilt, just us. And as days turned into weeks, I realized something. I didn't miss them. Not the constant comparison, not the manufactured crises, not the feeling of never being enough for my own mother. I missed the idea of family, the version I thought I had. But I didn't miss them. Months later, I saw Cassie again. It was at the grocery store of all places. She was alone, hair pulled back, face tired. When our eyes met, she froze, like she wasn't sure if I'd scream or walk away. I did neither. I just looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time, I saw past the jealousy, past the drama, past the lies. She wasn't the powerful villain she pretended to be. She was small, angry, lost. She opened her mouth, maybe to apologize, maybe to lash out. I'll never know. Because I turned and walked away before she could say a word. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about peace. And I wasn't going to give that up for anyone. Mom never got her big reconciliation moment either. We speak occasionally, birthdays, holidays, but it's polite, distant. She's still with Tom, still tries to pretend none of this ever happened. But every time I hear her voice, I remember the girl at the wedding. The one begging me to cancel my happiness for someone else's chaos. That girl doesn't control me anymore. Sometimes people expect a fairy tale ending. That Cassie apologized, Mom learned her lesson, and we all hugged it out. But life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes the happy ending is finally walking away. And for me, that's enough. If this were your family, if someone tried to hijack the happiest day of your life, would you forgive them, or would you walk away like I did? What would you do?